Hey everyone, welcome back. Okay, since we have built our skinny brick, now we're going to move on to part 2 of that milestone 2. This video is going to be for those who are building the FireTruck Lego kit. So our part 2 wants us to create configurations from our skinny brick file. So remember that when we turn in all of our files, we're only turning in 4 different part files. This will be our skinny brick with the configurations within its file, plus the 3 derived parts you'll also create. So this video is only going to focus on the configurations. So let's go ahead and get started. So once I have my skinny brick built and I used my equations, now we can create our configurations. So let's start with the first one. So you're going to want to come up on your Feature Manager design tree, go over to the third tab. This is going to be your configuration manager. When you see that, you'll see the overall part name that you have saved. I just have it saved as skinny brick and then FireTruck. And then you'll have our default skinny brick that we have created. You want to make sure that your configurations are nestled under that main name instead of the default. You can put configurations under both areas, so make sure you're adding your configurations to your main part file. So I'm just going to left click, so this is selected, then right click and add configuration. The instructions say for your configuration name, use your part numbers. So this name's going to be 379521. For a description, I'm just going to list it as a 2x6 and it is red. And hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and create all the configurations before actually changing them. So once again, right click, add configuration, type in 371021. This is a 1x4. It also is red. Add in another configuration. This is going to be part number 302321. It is a 2x1 and it is red. All these parts we're creating you're going to be using in your FireTruck when you build it. This is 302221. This is a 2x2 red. Next we have 302021. This is a 2x4 red. So changing the colors on these are going to be pretty simple since most of them are red. Then our last actual part number is 302121. And this is a 2x3 red. So now we need to add in that parent file that the directions say to name flat brick. This will be the part file you use to create your derived parts. This is going to be a 2x1 and it will be gray, and hit OK. So double check that we have all the right numbers. So we have our flat brick, 302021, 302121, 302221, 302321, 371021, and 379521. Okay, so right now you can see my display states on this bottom toolbar area say they are linked. That's because I've already worked in this part file. Most of the time when you open up your part file, it's not going to be linked. So you need to have your parts linked, and that's what the directions say, so that you can change your global variables and the color of your part, and the changes will stay different in each of your part numbers. The whole reason we're creating configurations. So go down to where it says display state, right click, and go to properties. Now under the advanced options, you need to make sure that your link display state to configurations has a check mark in it. This is the only time you'll have to do this for the whole part. So once you check it once, the configurations and this SolidWorks part file itself will always be linked. You need to remember how to do this for future exams or quizzes because you'll need to create configurations in the future as well. So just make sure that box has a check mark and hit OK. So let's begin. I'm going to start with the top of my list, even though it kind of changed them around, and go with 37521. So double click so that that part is selected. Go back over to your Feature Manager Design Tree, and now go to Equations. Right click and go to Manage Equations. So here I'm going to change my length and my width, which it can actually remain at 6x2. However, now that we've created the configurations, when you go in to change your variable or your value here, you'll notice you now have a new drop-down menu. If you click this, you want to always hit this configuration. You want to make sure that is selected for both parts. You can double check your part number configuration that you're working on the top right here. But if you do not select that this value is for this equation only, it will change all of your parts. Then go ahead and hit OK. So now we want to change our part color. So just select anywhere on your Lego part, come up here to your color wheel for appearances. When you click on it, you can change just the face that's selected, certain extrudes, the body, or the whole part itself. So click that whole part. We want to change all of it. I'm going to come up here, since I already have my part in plastic, and select clear plastic just so it has that more Lego-like appearance. And then I'm going to select it to be in red. So that's a little too clear. Let's change it. We don't want our piece to be hard to see. So these are solid. You can change them, especially for lights, to be different kinds of plastic textures. So I'm going to just keep it solid, change it to red, and then you want to scroll down and make sure that this display state only in this color tree is selected, and hit OK. Now that will make it so only this part stays red. If your part is not using plastic, under this it will say unspecified material. You can right click, go to edit material, and select plastic and ABS. That's what we'll use for all of our Lego parts. So now that I'm done with that configuration, so I'm going to move to my second one, which is 371021. So go ahead, double click on it, move back over to your Feature Tree Design Manager tab, right click on your equations and go to Manage Equations. Now this is a 4x1, so I'm going to select 4, make sure it's this configuration only, change this bottom value to 1, make sure it's this configuration only, and hit OK. Now you'll notice that you come up with an error on the bottom here. Let's flip that around. That is because with your 4x1, we no longer have this underneath annulus we first created. Instead, we have a smaller circle annulus. So we don't want to use the pattern or the extrude that we have been using for the rest of our Lego pieces. So go ahead and select that pattern. By left clicking, you'll then see these different icons. We want to only suppress the feature. This will keep it suppressed in only this part number. So go ahead and hit suppress. Now we also want to suppress that main extrude. So once again, select it and hit suppress. Now your part looks fine, but you can still see that you have a warning error coming up. That is because we suppress the feature, but not the sketch itself. So you can double click on it or click this arrow and it will drop down and show you that sketch that feature was built from. You want to click on it and suppress it as well. Now all those warnings go away and we just have our 4x1. So now we want to insert those smaller circular annulus. So go ahead and select that inside plane on your underneath of your brick where you did your extra extrude cut. Bring it normal to so we can sketch directly on it. Now I'm going to go over to the Sketch tab, open a new sketch, and select my circle sketch pencil. Go ahead and click down. We are using the same midpoint, so you can just create 2 circle sketches right now. Now I'm going to dimension that inner circle. Has a dimension of 1 millimeter. The outer circle has a dimension of 3 millimeters. Or actually, sorry, 2. And then I need a placement. So my placement value, I'm going to select the midpoint and then the edge of this outer circle should be 4. And then I'm going to select this inner top edge and that midpoint again of that circle, and this is going to be 2.5. So now it just moves that circle. You'll see that I have the size of my circle plus my 2 position dimensions, and it's fully defined. So now go to your Features tab. You do not need to exit out of the sketch. I'm going to turn my part sideways so you can see, and we're just going to extrude that base. For your direction, select up to surface, and then select that outside edge of your brick and hit OK. So now we have that smaller annulus. So we still want to use a linear pattern. Where before it mattered what direction or edges we used, since we're not going to be changing this part and it's going to stay the same for its part number, we don't have to worry about what edges we use for our linear pattern. So go ahead and select your linear pattern. Our direction 1 is just going across. We do not need a direction 2 since we're not going to be moving in the z-axis. Our distance is still going to be 8, and this time our instances are going to be 3. Then you'll want to select the features or face you want to pattern. So I'm just going to select that smaller annulus I just created. You can see a preview of what it will look like and hit OK. So now we have those underneath extrudes for our Lego brick. So we just need to change this to red. So go ahead and select it. Select your appearance color wheel, the main part file, change it to red, double check that it's this display state only, and hit OK. Now let's move to our next part. I'm going to save too. Make sure you're saving often. SolidWorks will always shut down at the most inconvenient time. So let's go to part number 302321. Double click it, go over. Now we're having the same issue where our sketch is saying it cannot be determined. So let's just go into our sketch and figure out what that reason is. So we should not have an issue. So I'm just gonna, if you have this error, just delete this dimension and then re-smart dimension that inner circle. For some reason, SolidWorks is saying there was an error, but you guys saw all the dimension is the same. Once I just redimensioned it, the error went away. You can see that that boss and that pattern that we created for that 4x1 was automatically suppressed by SolidWorks. So for this part number, go into your equations, right click, select Manage Equations. This part number is going to be a 2x1. So I'm going to change this value to 1, make sure it's this configuration only for both of those, and hit OK. So now we have another error come up. So you can see with our 2x1, we have no underneath pattern or that underneath feature because we utilize the smaller annulus that we created for the 4x1. So go ahead, select that pattern, suppress it, select this feature, suppress it, and then select your sketch. Suppress your sketch as well. Now we have no more errors. I'm going to draw another annulus on this inside face. So select that inside face, bring it normal to, go to your sketch tab, open a new sketch, select the circle, Once again, we're just going to place two circle sketches within themselves, dimension them, the inner being 1 millimeter, the outer being 2 millimeters. Give them that distance. Since I am sharing a midpoint, remember this distance is 4 and 2.5 from the edge. Since I am sharing a midpoint, I don't have to add in a relationship for those circles. Now it's fully defined, so go to your Features tab, let's extrude it. We're going to do up to the surface, select this bottom face, and then our selected contours, hit OK. So now we have our 2x1. We need to make it red, so you can click on it, go ahead and select the main body on your color wheel appearance, red, double check that it's only for this display state, and hit OK. I'm going to save this. Go back to your configuration tree. Now we're going to work on part 302221. So click it. We have no errors. Go to your equations, right click, manage equations. Now this part is a 2x2. So make sure you're only in this configuration and hit OK. So for this piece, we are using the first annulus we created, but we do not need a pattern. So just suppress the pattern. Those errors and warnings go away. Click anywhere on your Lego part, select your color wheel and the body of your part. Select red, double check this display state only, and hit OK. Go back to your configurations. Now we're going to work on 302021. So double click it. We're going to go manage those equations, and this part is a 2x4. So I'm just changing this value. Make sure it's this configuration and hit OK. So now I have a 2x4. Select anywhere on the part. Let's change its appearance to be red as well. Make sure this display state only and click OK. Back to our configuration tree. This is our last configuration, and it's 302121. Okay, go over, manage my equations. This is a 2x3. Make sure it's for this configuration only and hit OK. Now select anywhere on it, change the appearance of its body to red, and this display state only, and hit OK. Now our last thing to change is our flat brick. So go over our equations, or go to manage equations. This is a 2x1 part as well. Hit OK. Make sure you're suppressing your linear pattern that was used on the skinny brick, that boss feature for that underneath extrude, as well as the sketch in that feature. Now you can bring this face up underneath. And since I already worked with a 2x1 and created that underneath boss extrude, I'm going to select it on the bottom of my feature tree design manager and unsuppress it. So now I don't have to save that sketch. The reason I create a new one for the 2x1 instead of unsuppressing the one I used for the 4x1 is because I wanted it centered in the middle, and I didn't want to have to worry about where I drew that first smaller annulus on the 4x1. So now that our flat brick 2x1 is built, go ahead and select it. Let's change its appearance, and this time it's going to be gray. Make sure it's for this display state and hit OK. Now remember, save all your files, go to your configurations, and double check that everything works. So start by just clicking your different bricks, make sure they're changing size. If for some reason they don't change, and they should, select the rebuild icon that looks like the stoplight on your top toolbar. It will rebuild that part. Sometimes SolidWorks lags a little, so you need to just rebuild it manually. You can see as we go through our configurations, the parts automatically change, saving you so much time. There's our default skinny brick and our flat brick parent file. So go ahead and save this. This is one part file with multiple configurations. When you build your assembly, you'll just pull the part files from this main part file, because you can select from your configuration tree which part you want to utilize. And then stay tuned for a derived part tutorial, which will utilize this flat brick and finish off that part 2 of your Milestone 2.